And joining me now is Arkansas Republican Congressman Steve Womack. He presided over the House yesterday during that historic motion to vacate the speakership. And Congressman, take me back to that moment when that gavel came down. What was going through your head?
Well, first of all, I spent some time with the parliamentarian before I ever took the chair, just to kind of go over and war game, if you will, the potential options that could come out of yesterday's unprecedented, very highly charged emotional gathering. So I was prepared for that, and frankly, I wasn't thinking about outcomes at the time. I was just making sure that the integrity of the House of Representatives was preserved. And I think we did that yesterday. We managed the floor in such a way that it didn't get terribly emotional. There were no other outbursts that were totally out of the picture, and we were able to execute the process in such a way, the outcome being what it was, that the integrity of that chamber was protected yesterday. That was job one for me, and I think we passed that test.
And Congressman, speaking about that answer, picking up on that answer, you were speaking about that responsibility to the Wall Street Journal yesterday, and you said, quote, "I didn't want anything to happen that would put a stain on the institution from a strictly process standpoint," which you just alluded to. You previously called yourself an institution guy. Do you still have faith in the institution?
I do. I'll never give up on the institution. Look, we've been through a lot of things as a country down through the years. The events of yesterday certainly unprecedented, but remember, we've been through periods of time when we fought a civil war. I mean, an actual civil war, you know, and we've been through all kinds of other fits and starts as a country. That's what happens to young democracies, and ours is still, you know, pretty relatively young. And you're going to have experiences like this. But let me tell you, the bedrock foundation of what we're able to do as a country rests with what happens right across the street here at that Capitol. And in that institution, in that House chamber, and at the other end, on the north end of the Capitol, in the Senate chamber, there's some really important work that takes place there. And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, or you lean left, lean right, it doesn't make any difference. That process has to be able to be carried out with the highest level of integrity possible, and I thought we did that.
And Congressman, take me behind the scenes, if you could. What was the level of outreach behind the scenes to try and save Speaker McCarthy's job?
Well, first of all, Kevin had a lot of support in our conference. You saw that back in January during the speaker's vote. Not enough, but it's a thin majority. And there were some, you know, some of it was substantive, some of it was personal. I think that's fair to say. But he enjoyed widespread support. That's why Kevin stayed in the hunt, if you will, back in January for those 15 rounds. There was still a significant amount of support for Kevin yesterday, and I think it didn't meet with the vast majority of our conference when he basically said he wasn't going to pursue the speaker's race any longer after yesterday's vote. But you know, look, now I think it's important that Republicans, the governing majority, have a moment of introspection, try to figure out what is it that we did yesterday and why did we do it, and what can we do in the future to prevent that from happening. And if we can't get the answers to those questions, the threat of not being able to possess the gavel is real in 2024. So I think that's where we need to be.
And Congressman, looking ahead to the new speaker, looking towards the future, you know, Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise have already thrown their hats into the ring. Who is your top choice for speaker, and can they lead such a divided conference?
Well, that's a great question in terms of who can lead, and we're going to find out pretty quickly.
But who's your top choice, Congressman?
I'm a Scalise guy. Okay. You know, look, I think he's a majority leader. He's the next in charge. He's got an operation already built. He's been tried and he's been tested. He continues to be tested. And I told Steve last night in a phone call that if his doctors are in, if Jennifer's in, his wife, if Jennifer's in, I'm in. And I think we need the kind of leadership that Steve can bring us. There's no question about his conservative bona fides. He is an absolutely thoughtful conservative, and I think he has the potential to get McCarthy-style support within our conference, and look forward to seeing what happens on Tuesday.
What should happen to Matt Gaetz?
Well, first of all, let's just remember how it was possible that an individual like Matt Gaetz could pull off what he did yesterday. Speaker McCarthy made a deal with a lot of those individuals back in January when he got elected. I guess in exchange for those people voting present, there were 6 that voted present that allowed him to get the requisite number without being 218. And so he agreed to that motion to vacate. So you got to be careful what you agree to. I think that rule is an awful rule, and I think that there's a reason why this country has never gone through this before, because it's absurd. And so hopefully we'll figure this out. And
Congressman, you called yourself an institutionalist. Is Matt Gaetz bad for the institution?
Well, look, you can only get into the mind and the heart of a Matt Gaetz to figure out just what were the principal differences. Was it all about promises? Was it all? Look, we had a lot of victories. We had done a lot. HR 2, and moving appropriation bills. We were there.
Your colleague, Don Bacon, has said he wants to see Gaetz expelled from the Republican conference. Do you agree?
We need to think about that. We need to take a deep breath right now. As I said, a period of introspection. And when we come back next week, let the temperature go down in the building, let the rhetoric subside a little bit, then I think we can figure out what's next to do with or without a Matt Gaetz or any other member for that matter. And remember, he was not the only one that voted against Speaker McCarthy yesterday.
Yeah, but he led the charge. McCarthy didn't reach out to Democrats to save his speakership. What do you make of that decision? Should he have?
Speaker McCarthy made that decision, and he told us he wasn't going to cut any deals with Democrats, and I pretty well know what some of those deals might have looked like. They wouldn't have been good for the conservative movement and would have probably made the situation a lot worse. But if you got 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 members on your side that are just dug in and just will not support you for whatever reason, kind of litmus test sort of issues, then I think you got to figure out a way to go find votes elsewhere. And maybe there was an opportunity, but look, the Biden impeachment inquiry, some of the rhetoric that has been flying around the Capitol about who's responsible for this, who's responsible for that. I mean, I think all of that kind of fed into this notion that he wasn't going to get any Democrat support.
And Congressman, before I let you go, since you brought it up, I do want to ask you about the impeachment inquiry. The last time we had you on this program, you said impeachment, quote, requires high crimes and misdemeanors, and that has not been proven as we hold this conversation. That was last time you were on the program. And now that we've seen the first oversight hearing on this, what do you make of the evidence?
Well, I haven't seen high crimes and misdemeanors. I know there's a lot of, theories going around the country right now. But look, as I said back then, impeachments are a tool, should be the last tool in the toolbox you ever reach for, because it's a serious matter. So I don't have a problem with looking at issues, trying to chase down certain accusations and looking at all of the things possible that we can get evidence on. But if it's not there, it's not there, and we need to move on.
Congressman Womack, who presided over that historic moment yesterday, thanks so much for joining Meet the Press Now. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.